That yours. Hit that one more time. I am the number one determinant of the success or failure. Here we go. Of my student. Hey, y'all, you have a strong summer. Kick some butt next year. Thank you. Appreciate you. That's the mindset. That's the attitude. Love you guys.
And we are live. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Come on in. We're in week 105 of the virtual AP Leadership Academy. Let me see who I got here this morning. Hit that share button for me as you come in. We got where we at. Janine Wilkins, first one out there in Alaska. We got Doc McKeever Jeter in the building. We got Juanita Presley, Michael Benton, Karima Anque, Priscilla Dunson Lee, John Herricks, Anita K. We got the Queen in the building, Kimberly Broughton Kafele, my wife. We got Portia Ajigbo, Julia Rich, Principal Rich is in the building. We got John Few, Tommy Vincent Hilliard, Raquel Squall is in the building. That might be Raquel. No, that's Raquel. It gotta be. We got my man, Principal Otis Kitchen II in the building. Janet Ray Choney is in the building. Hit the share button, hit the retweet button. Let them know that we are here. Let them know. We got Pamela Marcus, Barber County Intermediate School is in the building. Appreciate that. Marsha Poe, Kendra Joe Murray out there in Dubai said, hey, and I say, hey, back at you. We got Rodney Richardson. We got Janelle Ballard, TB Summers, Marjorie Miller. My man, Josh Tovar is in the building under MPA Jaguars. Buenos dias. Principal Carlos Baggage is in the building. Principal Tovar said he's on fire. I'm on fire too, Josh. I'm on fire. I'm blazing. I just finished doing a keynote, man. I'm bringing that energy to this platform. Teresa Thacker's in the building. Tony McClenny, Dominique Price, Doomerville, James Wilburn, DM Early is in the building. Venice Lewis, Lily Lanier, Takesha High. Let me see what Josh said. Happy Principal Day tomorrow to all principals. There you go. Tahisha Morgan, Laura Mayer, Eric Brown, Lysandra Brackens is in the building. Tony DeBenio. No, that's not right. DeBenian is in the building. Hit the share button, folks. Hit the retweet button. Let them know we are here. Felicia Hutchins Marshall, Katrina Washington, Yolanda McKinney is in the building. Marjorie Miller, bring it. Yeah, I'm going to bring it. Let's see. Edu Leader Team is in the building. Arlette Johnson Mojo in the building. Andrea Wasserman. Hope I got that right. We got my man Golfar WT in the building. Teresa Jones is in the building. Karen Fletcher. Hit that share button. Hit that retweet button. We're on 4 platforms this morning. 2 Facebooks, 1 Twitter, 1 YouTube. Hit the share button. Let them know that we are here. We are here live. Kedra Page is in the building. Charlena Hottie is in the building. Alan Cowart is in the building. I think it's that time. It's about 11 o'clock. Let me give it about 10 more seconds, and then we're going to get rocking and rolling. Come on in. Hit the share button. Hit the retweet button. Let them know this is what we do every Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, 10:55 to be precise. We got my man, Champion Principal, in the building. He's going to be one of my guests at some point. I got a lot of folks on here. They're going to be my guest at some point. They're doing big things. It's just the list is so extensive. But you know something, folks? It's 11:01. It's that time. So let me say formally to everybody, good morning. Greetings. Welcome to week 105 of the virtual AP Leadership Academy. And I don't know about you. You know I say that all the time. I've said it for 105 weeks now. I don't know about you, and I might say I'm in a hotel, but I don't care. I don't know about you, but if I could speak for me just for a hot second, I'm on fire. Told you I'm in the hotel, man, but it's 11 o'clock. If somebody over there sleep, they're going to have to deal with it. Let me tell you something, y'all. I say it every week. I say it differently every week, but you know, I'm on fire this morning. I see you, Scott Savage, Principal Savage. I'm on fire this morning. I just finished doing a keynote, man. And matter of fact, let me shout them out. The National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa Incorporated, the Epsilon Alpha chapter. Man, this is a sorority, just it's all Black women. And they do this in different parts of the country. This is the Eastern Region, 82nd Annual Eastern Region Conference, and they saw it not robbery to bring me on as the keynote. So here I am, and I said, I'm gonna do it, but just give me time to be able to do my virtual AP Leadership Academy. So we scheduled it right, and here I am, and they all downstairs here in Somerset, New Jersey. So for that reason, I'm on fire. Woo! That's how I'm feeling, man. Yo, let's get it going. I got a quick message for you. It's called Finding Your Enthusiasm When It Seems to Have Escaped You. Once again, finding your enthusiasm when it seems to have escaped you. I want you to hear this. This is personal. I was somewhere, and I would never tell you where, but I was somewhere this week, and I did a full day presentation, and I had an experience. I want you to hear this because I'm talking to somebody out there. And this experience was, there was a cluster of folks, these are educators in the room, who in their mind, you may as well have said, I was not there. Now, I was the presenter. They were engaged in their own conversations, had the phones out, holding them up, looking at the phone. I mean, they weren't even trying to keep them down here and pretend. They was blatant with it, like, yo, you know. So I'm like, I'm distracted, right? So I'm looking at them. You know, the teacher stare didn't work. You know how the teacher stared, like, you look, maybe they stopped that, man, that they like, yo, we ain't scared of that. So they talking, they laughing, and I'm like, you know, so I'm trying to do a presentation. I got 6 hours in this place. I'm like, are they talking about me? Are they laughing at me? Like what's happening here? So now my energy, hear me somebody, my energy went down, right? My enthusiasm went down. My excitement came down. And I was mad. I was angry. I was frustrated. I'm like, these are educators. They're going back in the classroom tomorrow. And you playing off what I'm saying? You discounting what I'm saying? Like, it's not important to you? You laughing, you talking, you oblivious to my presence? So now in my mind is saying, on the one hand, keep going. But on the other hand, my other half of my brain is saying, yo, shut this down and leave. What you got to lose? I mean, that is where I was. The space I was in, like, just shut it down and walk out, man. How dare you be disrespected like this? You know, particularly somebody who's done this work for this many years, 35 years. How dare you be disrespected this way? And you know something? Let me give you this title again. Finding Your Enthusiasm When It Seems to Have Escaped You, right? So I'm using that experience as a lesson real quick. Here's what happened. I knew that 4/5 of the room were paying attention to me. It was that 1/5 that was distracting me. So I caught myself. I said, wait a minute, the rest of the room, they here. Why are you letting them bother you? And man, I took my game back up, and I was fine. I delivered that presentation, and I said, for them, they're not going to get it. That's on them. Unfortunately, it's going to reflect on their students as well. But I said, I'm not going to deprive the 4/5 because of a 5th. So I found my enthusiasm when it was escaping me. Hey, somebody on here listening right now, You going through your own trial. You going through your own tribulation. You know what you're dealing with. And you know it's easy for you to lose your enthusiasm. You know it's easy for you to lose your excitement, your energy, your passion. Well, I'm saying to you this morning on April 30th, the last day of the month, don't allow situations, circumstances, people to sap you of your innate enthusiasm like I almost did. Let me be your example. Don't let those distractions distract you from you being your natural self. Rise above it and be you regardless, because there's a whole lot of us in this business, whether it be in leadership or just different aspects of the world, that allow the external to bring us down. See, and I almost fell for that, but I caught myself and I was able to continue and finish strong. So again, finding your enthusiasm when it seems to have escaped you. Let's move on. Welcome to the first timers today. Glad you're here. I don't know who you are. Might be some of them folks that was in that audience, but that's all right, right? But welcome to the first timers. Don't let this be your last time. And also remember, there are 104 previous sessions. Go to YouTube at Virtual AP Leadership Academy and check out, just binge watch all 104 of the previous sessions. Don't forget two quick conferences, the School Leadership Institute with Principal Kafele, which I'm calling Virtual AP Leadership on the Road. That'll be in Charlotte, North Carolina, July 12 and 13. Live, all day, no virtual, in person. Go to School Leadership Institute with Principal Kafele on Google, or put in 5th Annual School Leadership Institute with Principal Kafele on Google and register and join me in Charlotte on July 12 and 13. And then on July 16 and 17, come on down to Atlanta, and I'll be keynoting along with my man, Anthony Muhammad, and others, the Deaf Ed Conference. That's DEF, Deaf Ed Conference, July 12 and July 16 and 17, not 12 and 13, 16 and 17. Come on down to Atlanta. Just Google Deaf, DEF, Ed, ED Conference, and you'll see it. July 16 and 17. Come on and join us. And then lastly, with these announcements of speaking, my summer public schedule, not my PD schedule when I'm going to schools and districts, but my public schedule, the national conferences, is on principalkafele.com homepage. Just go to my homepage and see where I'm going to be. I might be in a city near you. Like we got the class conference in Birmingham coming up. So those of you down there in Birmingham, Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, come on up down to Birmingham, man. We're going to bring the flames. We're going to bring the fire down there. So that's the class conference. I don't have the dates in front of me, but just go to my homepage, principalkafele.com. I got links right on the page. Click them, register, and join me, right? I told you I was going to phase out this platform on Facebook. I changed my mind. We keeping it on here, so we good. On my personal page, so we good. Congrats to all the folks with these that are getting these positions as principals and assistant principals. Congratulations to you. Those who are interviewing, keep your head up and keep moving. Those are not aware of the assistant principal and principal videos. They're on the same YouTube channel. So watch the videos to get some insight on being great in those interviews, right? A Principal Carlos Baggage, I'm looking forward to seeing you down there at the class conference as well. I got some books, but I didn't even, they're in the bag, so forget them. The Equity in Social Justice Education 50, that's my newest one. The Assistant Principal 50, that's the one that supports this workshop, this platform. Got that keynote on my mind. And then the Aspiring Principal 50, that's the other one. So those three, go to Amazon and get yourself a copy of each. And then lastly, I'm rocking Jersey City. You know, I told you I was a tribute to Jackie Robinson all week. Jackie Robinson didn't play for Jersey City, but his first professional game as a minor leaguer was in Jersey City. They played the Jersey City Giants, who were known as the Little Giants. They were the farm team to the New York Giants, who became the San Francisco Giants. So I'm still rocking Jackie Robinson. He didn't play with them. In fact, this team did not treat him very well, I might add, with it being his actual first game. You know, we talk about April 15, 1947 as being the first game, but that was in the majors. But the real first game was in Jersey City. at Roosevelt Stadium when he was in the minor leagues playing for the Montreal Royals farm team of the Brooklyn Dodgers, right? So I'm repping that today. With that said, I got a guest today, y'all. I got a guest all the time, man. But I should say I got a big time guest. I only bring big time people on here, people doing big things. And I got this young man who's very interesting, and I know you're gonna love him. So let me bring him up here without further ado. I got my man, Chicago educator Larue Fitch in the building. Good morning to you, Larue. Good to see you. How you feeling?
I'm doing great, brother. Good morning. How's everyone doing out there?
They all good. Let them know if you're feeling great. Let them know, folks. Larue, I got a question to ask you before I even read your bio. I ask this to every guest I bring on here. Everybody, a lot of us are struggling. We got the pandemic. We got the pandemic relative to health, the pandemic relative to race, relative to gender, relative to sexual orientation. Whatever it is, there's a lot of struggle out here. But there's also a lot of good, and sometimes we lose sight of the good. Tell us, before I read the bio, thinking about or reflecting upon your past 7 days. Give us one of your wins. Give us something that was good that might resonate with somebody else out there that needs to hear something positive.
Absolutely. For the past 7 days, we've been working in my current capacity over the argumentative writing process. And just to be more transparent with you, we struggled with the basic sentence structure and how to formalize a complete essay. But a win was just our students being able to identify a claim and provide evidence. Now, for some schools out there in districts, that may be a small thing, but for our capacity, that was a huge win for my baby. So we're definitely rocking and rolling.
There you go. A win, y'all. A win. We start off with a win, keeping it positive every week. Let me tell you who's on the screen here. Larue Fitch graduated from St. Xavier University with a BS in elementary education and received his MED, Master's in Education and Educational Leadership and Administration from Chicago State University. His passion for education was supported through a strong foundation of advocating for diversity and ensuring all students are successful. Beginning his educational journey as an elementary school teacher, he continued to plant the seed of purpose and passion for 7 years. He worked with the students in grades 4 through 8, teaching science, literacy, and math. During his time in the classroom, he was fortunate to develop relationships with students while providing a safe environment which fostered growth and academic development. As the years progressed, leadership opportunities began to open within his school, and he became the science lead teacher. One of the most rewarding aspects of this role was the ability to work with his peers. This one experience sparked his desire to seek additional leadership opportunities. 7 years later, he entered the role of assistant principal and resident principal in Chicago Public Schools. Currently, Mr. Fitch is serving as an educator for Chicago. So let me just say this as I ended the bio. When he says educator, because I'm reading verbatim, educator in Chicago, as you saw in the post I put up Thursday, we're talking about a principal who made a decision to return back to the classroom, right? Let me say that again. A principal who made a decision, not forced into the classroom, made a decision to return back to the classroom. That's intriguing. I don't think I would dare think that everybody on this call who is a principal has probably considered it, probably at least had the notion, I sure would like to get back into that classroom, because I know I did. I still do. I think about it probably every day. Being in that classroom with that 20, 25 students, they mind for an entire year. Who could not want to do that, right? So here you made the decision. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. So let's jump into it. Larue, as an educator, who is Larue Fitch?
Absolutely. I'll say Larue Fitch is passionate, has a relentless drive, and really cares and loves what he does. I have a big heart when it comes to teaching students. I enjoy exposing them to current events. I enjoy watching them have those ha-ha moments. And at the end of the day, I enjoy them teaching other students, right? That's who I am, a team player, somebody that, can reach across the aisles and, work with other teachers. Just want to ensure that we're just collaborating in the best interest of the children. So that's Larue Fitch.
So with that, building on it, there's a zillion different professions that you could have entered because you're obviously a very intelligent young man. You chose education. Why education, and what continues to fuel your passion for this work to this day?
Absolutely. I'm from Kankakee, Illinois, and growing up as a youth down there, I was considered a sped student. Right, I sat in a classroom where there was only 4 or 5 students in there, and I was inspired by one of my teachers. You know, it was my first male teacher that actually seen something in me. He introduced me to personalized learning before I even got into this terminology of personalized learning. So the way that he had an impact on me, I said to myself, Principal Kafele, if I can impact others, I want to do the same thing. Watching my mother struggle, she was a single mother, not growing up without a father, had a huge impact on me. So my goal was to make sure everything that I was able to inspire others with that I received, I can give that to students moving forward. So my mom inspired me through her relentless drive, you know, my former teacher, and just my passion itself. I wanted to get back to the community. So I said to myself, I'm gonna become a teacher one day, because if this man can change my life, if people like my mother can inspire me, I want to do that to other people.
Wow, that's powerful
Yeah.
stuff. Powerful stuff. So here you were in the classroom, and then you made a decision, leadership.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons that people make decisions to become a leader. I had several, but I had one that drove me. I'm wondering with you, thinking about you in that leadership capacity, was there one that superseded everything else where you concluded to yourself, I have to lead for this reason?
Yeah, absolutely. After becoming a resident principal for Chicago Public Schools, I went back to Kankakee, Illinois, and I worked at a high school in an alternative program, which I helped convert into a school. And what's so, you know, marvelous about that is that some of my former teachers were teaching under my work, my leadership, right, at that former school.
Wow.
At that moment, I said, you know what, I need to lead. I can do this. You know, I was inspired by making that decision to go into that leadership. I was inspired to go back to my hometown to oversee the program to convert into a school. And that was probably the most, you know, successful leadership moment when you talk about what leadership journeys or what direction I wanted to go into. So that program itself that was able to be converted into a school was my hugest, you know, leadership moment that I had.
Yeah, yeah, that's huge. You know, in addition to what you do as a teacher now, a teacher before, and then a principal prior to, you're an author of, if I'm not mistaken, 2 books.
Mhm.
And one of them I have here, and I'm put on the screen here, Breaking the Education Code. And then you go on, which I found intriguing, and I went on and read why you have the subtitle, From Negro to Black, right? But Breaking the Education Code. Your second book, brand new, and folks, I'll promote it right now, Amazon.com. Get yourself a copy of this and book number 1, because as you see at the top, it's a series. So this is the second of a 2-book series, and with it being a series, it's probably going to be a third, right? So when you know, just looking at the title, Breaking the Education Code. So what Larue is saying is that there's a code to this, and we got to understand it. So in reading the book in terms of preparing for today's conversation, one of the things that you say early on, one of your former students, you were informed, was murdered in a store where there were kids shooting into the store, and you know, she was just there and was not an intended target, but as a result, she lost her life. And I want to read to the audience what you said. So I want you all just be patient with me. Let me read this paragraph to everybody. At the moment of this student's funeral, I began to question the impact that I was having on education. I began to ask myself if I had gotten into the field of education just to become a principal, ignoring the ritual path and daily struggle of being an educator. Of course, I enjoyed being an administrator. And of course, I enjoyed being an educational consultant. However, there's nothing like being in the trenches of the classroom. The ability to cultivate, inspire, and transform the mindsets of scholars and students is the best job. I questioned for months if I left the classroom too soon. So I probably read that paragraph about 3 times and highlighted it and everything. And obviously I didn't know that aspect of your experience. So what I want you to do, talk to us about why you felt the need, felt that you were needed in the classroom in that moment.
I felt that I was needed in the classroom in that moment, um, just because I knew what we were going through as a country, as a society, with the unrest, right? I wanted to go back to inspire. I had moments in the classroom prior to leaving back in 2014 where we engaged in Socratic seminar. I facilitated conversations that dealt with race and relations, and I felt we were pivoting and moving from there. And I wanted to get back, Principal Kafele, to that moment. I enjoyed becoming an administrator. But just to be more transparent with you, I title chased, and sometimes we get into those situations where we just want the title.
Yeah.
And I fell into that trap. But there's nothing like being in the trenches, being in there with the students, inspiring them to make decisions, cultivating their mindsets, and just having conversations to build them up. I miss that. Even as an administrator, I worked as a classroom teacher, right? I was teaching science and I was an assistant principal at the same time, so I missed those moments of being in the classroom. And it took unfortunate events in our country for me to realize I need to go back. I have some unfinished business that I need to make right. And, I need to go back into the classroom to continue to work.
I have a late checkout. Come on, 1:00. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good. I felt at that moment I needed to go back into the classroom to inspire, to continue what I was doing in 2014, because I pivoted away from that because, as I said, I was title chasing and I got into administration and all I did was put on for the look, right? But just to be in there, to roll up your sleeves, to work with students, engage families was my passion. So even though I was an administrator, at that moment, I was always questioning, did I go into it too fast? Because I always found myself in the classroom, not just coaching and providing feedback, but wanting to take over, So I said, you know what the heck? I'm gonna go back into the classroom and show that an administrator can go back into this classroom and can become a dynamic educator that can inspire students, that can be a counteract to what's currently happening in our society.
You said a mouthful, and as a brief aside, let me talk about following directions real quick. That has nothing to do with what you just said.
Sure.
Now, everybody on this call saw this housekeeping woman coming to this room, right? See, I told them last night, right? Don't disturb me. I got a late checkout at 1:00. So I said, tell housekeeping. Then I called them right before I went on. Don't have these people coming to my room. But see, folks not following direction. And see what happens? You don't follow direction, right? So now going back to what you just said, I want to holler at this audience because you said title chasing, and we know that there are some who do that. So to somebody out there, I want you to look into your spirit, look into your soul, and ask yourself, particularly those of you who are aspiring to become an administrator, do you really want this from the bottom of your soul? Or do you want this because you're chasing a title, because you're chasing a salary, right? Because you're chasing power? Why do you want to do this? Because whatever your why is going to determine your level of effectiveness. And even those of you who are in it, ask yourself, why am I in it? Is it the title? Is it the prestige? Is it the status? Is it the power? Or is it because you know that you can effectuate change once you're in that leadership position? That's an important question, I believe, for anybody in leadership or anybody in education to ask oneself, but also to revisit from time to time, because as life continues to unfold, we change along with it. And are we still in it for the reason we said as time progresses? So I appreciate you sharing that. So Larue, the summer of 2020, the spring of 2020, what a time for America, what a time for the world. We were introduced to George Floyd. 9 minutes, 29 seconds, murdered with a knee on the neck by a Minneapolis police officer. And then we learned in hindsight of Breonna Taylor. And you wrote something that I want to share. I got altogether 3 paragraphs from your book. I'm actually reading verbatim. So I want to read the second part. You said George Floyd's death was unlike any others. It was recorded via cell phone for the world to see. As he screamed out, "Mama," I thought about my scholars and loved ones. During this time, I questioned what type of impact I was making outside of the classroom. As I reflected, meditated, and fasted, I decided to pursue my passion of going back into the classroom. Not only has it been one of the greatest decisions, but it also has been a very humbling experience. So with that read, my question to you, we've talked about it, but I want to give it to you formally now. What made you return to the classroom? What made your return to the classroom such a great decision and such a humbling experience?
Absolutely. What made my decision a great experience was just finding my niche, finally, being that resolution, having a resolution to why I wanted to go back into the classroom. It was always there. And it's been very humbling, Principal Kafele, even when you're working with administrators that you've coached, even when you working with administrators that came under you in regard to different principal preparation programs, watching them lead and become the face of education, or receive these awards and accolades, but you're back in the classroom. It was very humbling, and I didn't announce, just be transparent with you. I didn't announce my first year back in the classroom. I waited, and then I just said, what the heck, I'm gonna let everybody know, right? Because if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it right. So it's been very humbling, but I was able to accept it and just accept this is who I am. I'm an educator, no matter what title I am in, but I'm an educator that enjoys being in the classroom.
An educator, critical. So I got one more. It became a humbling experience because it allowed me, and this is key, allowed me to learn more instructional, cultural, and relational strategies. During my first year back in the classroom, I learned, led, and evolved as an instructional leader. That one really resonated with me, that last one. So my last thought on that before I move on, given your experience as an AP and a principal, what was it about your return to the classroom that allowed you to learn more instructional, cultural, and relationship strategies that you may not have had prior to that return?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was an AP as well as a principal, at times I felt that I lost myself and I was focusing more on compliance opposed to capacity. And honestly, once I got back into the classroom.
I gotta stop you. You just said something that I can't wait for you to finish this answer. You said you focus more on compliance than capacity. Woo! That's a big one, right? I gotta say it again. You focus more on compliance than you did capacity. I wanted to repeat that because I want somebody out there to hear that in case it kind of just went in one ear and out the other. Hey folks, my mirror's in my bag. I'm gonna get it in a minute. Where are you at, folks? Are you on compliance or capacity? That's why this platform exists, so we can handle them tough questions. Go ahead, Larue. I didn't mean to stop you like that.
No, absolutely. So compliance, in my experiences as an administrator, was just following a rubric, following what the district wanted me to do. I was not myself, but when I got back into the classroom, I was able to focus on capacity, working with, coaches, working with families, administrators, to learn the new high leverage instructional strategies, to learn ways to become a great educator, to become a better, teacher in that classroom. So I was myself, to be honest with you, opposed to that title chasing time that I was having. I was just focused on compliance and doing whatever the district wanted me to do. However, once I'm in that classroom, I was saying, this is capacity. I can just unbutton the shirt, unbutton the tie, I can just let loose and I can really go into it like I want to go into it.
Yeah. And you know, that resonates with me, and that's why I had to stop you. You know, compliance or capacity, and I guess with myself, I was a capacity guy. I know so as a teacher, but as a principal, I had to be. I got in a little trouble, but I had to be a capacity guy. I can't comply with stuff I don't agree with, right? But that's for a whole other conversation. So, but you also indicated that you evolved as an instructional leader. How so, and in what way did that happen?
Absolutely. Prior to going back into the classroom, you know, from my past experiences, I talked a lot, right? And I learned how to become a facilitator now. I actually introduced my classroom to more of a democratic approach to teaching and learning. I've learned, Principal Kafele, that the person in the classroom that's doing majority of the talking is the only one that's learning. So I wanted to allow my scholars to engage more while I facilitated the learning environment. That was a lot for me, you know, because I love to be out there and talking and facilitating and overseeing the whole conversation, but just to allow them to have conversation and dialogue with each other more so than myself was a way that I was able to evolve.
Wow, now see you dropping some stuff here. Let me see if I got this right. You said the one who is doing all the talking is the one that's probably doing all the learning. Am I quoting you correctly?
That is correct.
So let's look at that, y'all out here in the audience. You're leaders, and you walk into a classroom, and the teacher is teaching, and it looks good, it sounds good, and you hear a lot of you just hear a lot of words coming out of the teacher's mouth. But just putting it in the context of what Larue just said, we can't guarantee that learning is occurring because the teacher is yapping in the classroom, right? So as AP, as principal, since we know we have principals on here, what is your role to ensure that the student is the star of the show? Because again, we can get mesmerized by what looks good, sounds good from the teacher. It's like me as an orator giving a speech. Man, Principal Kafele got me fired up. But does the audience really hear me? See, it might look good, sound good, but are you able to process it, right? So I'm just throwing the question to the APs out here listening and the principals. What do you do when it's a teacher-centered learning environment where the students are passive in the process? What do you do? Right. So with that said, Larue, I'm gonna keep it moving. So having served as AP and principal who returned to the classroom, in what way did your experience in now going back to the classroom shape, alter, enhance, or even mold the way you see the assistant principalship now versus the way you may have seen it before or even when you walked in it?
Absolutely. Right now, I'm able to see it in a different lens. I was able to reflect and take information back and just, you know, kind of create a plan on what I would do differently if I was in that role as an administrator. Being transparent in myself, I was able to see how I pivot and lost my passion. And that's one thing I don't want to lose is my passion. We have to advocate for what is just and right, you know, and as an administrator, one day, hopefully, if I get back into that position, I'm not going to lose who I am. I'm going to remember those students. I'm going to make sure I constantly become an advocate for those students. I'm never going to stop being an instructional leader. And I'm going to always focus on capacity opposed to compliance. And last but not least with that, Principal Kafele, I'm not going to forget that I'm a Black man in that role. Yeah. You know, and I'm going to always remember that. And I need to make sure that I keep that inside of myself and always, you know, lead with that fearlessly.
You know, for me, it wasn't even forgetting it. It was very intentional in terms of, I'd always tell my children, my students, I'm a Black male teacher. Yeah. And as a principal, I literally stand on the stage when I'm doing my school-wide meetings. I'm a Black male principal. Right. And that brings along certain responsibilities. So instead of hiding from that and feeling that it wouldn't be politically correct to identify my reality. I wanted to put that on Front Street so that young people and staff understood clearly. I'm leading from that perspective as a Black man, not a generic principle, right? Good stuff. I'm glad you mentioned that. You know, Larue, I have a lot of conversations with aspiring principals, particularly when I'm on the road, and I'll throw different scenarios at them. And as they answer or give me a response to whatever it is I've asked them, typically they're responding as a teacher. And I'll stop them. And I say, wait a minute, you aspire to become a leader, right? Yes. Well, I want to revisit the question, but I want you to respond as a leader, not as a teacher, because I'll say to them, you sound like a teacher in a teachers union. And I want you to sound like you are a leader of a school. It's two very different spaces. So related to the question I just asked you, as a principal who has returned to the classroom, to what extent do you see school leadership now, as opposed to the assistant principal? To what extent do you see school leadership differently from how you may have seen it in the past?
I would say currently the way that I look at school leadership is in a lens of you have to be community oriented. You have to involve the community into the decisions. You have to make sure that everybody, all stakeholders are on one accord. You have to be a collaborative leader, as well as you have to make sure that you leverage those leadership opportunities for your staff in the building. I look at school leadership as a system, right? And everybody plays an important part to that school. Whether you're talking about the custodians, whether you're talking about the parents, the advocates, the volunteers, everything is a system. So when as I analyze it, if one part of that system is not there, then you have an incomplete system. So everybody plays an important role, no matter what title that they have, when you look at it from a school leadership lens.
Yeah, absolutely. In your book, you said, you asked the question, did you ever hear someone say, when I teach, I do not see color, right? And that's another portion of your book that resonated with me, because I feel the need to address that probably 100% of the time when I'm on the road, because there's always somebody in that room. And sometimes that individual is very vocal with it, that I don't see color, I don't see race, I don't see Black children, white children, Latino children, Asian children. I just see the children. And if we would stop seeing these differences in terms of racial, ethnic, cultural differences, the world would be a better place. And the amen corner starts clapping. And then I gotta approach all that stuff. I gotta address all that stuff. But it's the reality. So my question then, what are the implications for children when the teacher doesn't see the color, the race of the student?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, very unfortunate. That's the term that comes to me, as being unfortunate. You do see color. When we analyze data, when we look at the numbers, when we look at the strategies that we want to provide for certain students or the support, you see color, and that's equity, right? We talk about resources. We see color. Yes, I see color, because I have to acknowledge not only academic language that the school or state is encouraging me, but I have to recognize home language. That's color, right? When students are not performing well, because guess what? They didn't eat prior to getting to the classroom. They don't have the same resources as other students. That's color. We see color in everything that we're doing. And that's the foundation of diversity and how you welcome that to the classroom. So of course you see color.
What if I see color, but when I see children of color, Black children, Latino children, I see it, but I'm seeing something inferior? What's the implication there?
Then that's a mindset. That's a problem. And that's a huge problem. We shouldn't see anything inferior. That's a bias. That's a prejudice, right? You should be more open-minded to the students that you're serving, right? You want to come through with everybody's going to receive equitable supports, but you have to have the mindset and not pass judgment to say, you know what, I feel nervous, or based on past experiences of what I heard. You have to be able to say, you know what, that child deserves it, because at the end of the day, they are children. They have a growth mindset. They just want to be inspired with love and care. But our biases is what we push sometimes, that prevent us from really going there to encouraging our students.
Yeah, and you know, with that question I just asked you, I ask you because we both know it's real. We know that there are people who have lower expectations and standards for young people of color than they may have for other children within that same classroom, that same district, or just the other categories of young people. So therefore, it becomes incumbent upon us to ensure as best we can that that youngster is in a classroom with somebody that has their best interest at heart. So I want to flip that onto the audience real quick. Hey, assistant principal who's on the call right now, principal who's on the call right now, superintendent or assistant superintendent who's on the call right now. What role are you playing? I want you to hear me well, and I'm gonna go back to Larue. What role are you playing to ensure that a student or students are not sitting in classrooms who see them as inferior because of their racial, cultural, ethnic identity? What role are you playing? And I'm not specifically asking you what or dictating to you what you should do at this in this discussion, but I am asking you, what are you doing when it's happening right under your nose? What are you doing about that? Because it's easy to discern. We know it when it's there. But what role are you playing to eradicate it? That's just I went and got my mirror. So that's just a self-reflection question. Now Josh Tovar, I guess I need to clean it, right? But that's just a reflection question for someone out there to just consider. So Larue, what are the possibilities then for children when they have a teacher that does see the differences, the racial, ethnic, cultural differences in that class? And what are the possibilities for children in that context?
They feel inspired. They feel like they're part of the curriculum because they see themselves within the curriculum. They can connect, right? It goes back, Principal Kafele, to Dr. Gloria Lansing Billings when she speaks on culturally relevant pedagogy, right? We have to ensure we have that approach to teaching and learning. Students feel encouraged, they feel inspired, they feel engaged, and guess what? Socially, they're there, right? And academically, they're able to matriculate and advance. They definitely, they benefit from the idea of being acknowledged and being able to see themselves within that classroom setting.
So therefore, what would you say to the viewers this morning? The family is a better word. To the family this morning that are in leadership relative to ensuring that each youngster in the building is not in a classroom with a teacher that sees less than of some of the students in the classroom. What would you say to that leader who may be experiencing that right now?
Absolutely. I would say to that leader that you have to coach, right? You have to coach and support that teacher. But prior to that, Principal Kafele, you need to make sure that you hire people that look like the students in which you serve, right? And are able to connect to those students. Make sure that your curriculum is diverse. Make sure that it welcomes students. Students are engaged. They have a voice into that decision-making process. And they feel encouraged. We're not just going to analyze the data and say what the students of color are not, how they're not performing. And when I say students of color, I'm talking about our Black and brown population. We need to make sure we have priorities and goals in place to addressing those areas of concerns for our students.
In breaking the education code, you indicate that teachers must bring an anti-racist perspective to their work. Talk to someone out there that may not really be intimately or deeply familiar with what it means to be anti-racist. What does that mean in the education space?
Yeah, absolutely. In the education space, just being able to call out injustices and inequities, things that are racist, that are preventing us, right? And we have to understand, Principal Kafele, that racism is a system that all people of other subgroups benefit from, right? So we have to be able to call that out in the educational system. The way we call that out is simply what I did with my scholars this year, right? We're working on Project 1619. And we're learning about information, and students are calling out information that is like, wow, I never knew it was like this, because they're so accustomed to learning about slavery, civil rights, Martin Luther King, and then Barack Obama became president, right? But being able to talk about the 13th Amendment and why it was put together, why was it structured, as a way of calling out racist ploys and conspiracies that happen in education.
That terminology, anti-racist, just like the word equity, there's so much confusion out there as to what it is and what it is not. So a lot of folks get turned off when they hear anti-racist. I noticed my numbers dipped a little bit when I mentioned it. But I decided I'm gonna mention it anyway, and it is what it is. But why, just building on what you just said, why does that even matter? That one has that anti-racist understanding as an educator, and then I'm gonna ask you about the role of the leadership later on. But why does that even matter?
It matters because race matters. And we have to stop being comfortable and content with information out there that does not look like us, that does not reflect us, right? We have curriculums that are put out there that are comfortable, to the general society. And race matters because, being an anti-race is important because that allows us, a safe space to have dialogue, no matter what area you come from, black, white, brown, it doesn't matter. It encourages us to come to the table, to have an engaging dialogue. If we want to seek change, we must be comfortable in uncomfortable settings to ensure that we don't repeat the same mistakes that we're currently going through right now.
Before we continue, I see Dr. Tanya Brown Johnson asked to state the name again. Breaking the Education Code, right? Subtitle From Negro to Black, right? We'll get into that. But you can get it on Amazon right now, right now. Seems like every book I promote on here with my guests, they go to #1 or within the top 5 on Amazon in the categories that they're in. So check it out. I fully endorse it. Equity. That's another boogeyman out there. I wrote a blog about it a few months ago. I said, equity is not a 4-letter word. It's not the boogeyman. This was a whole title, long title. It's not a political word. It's just great teaching. From your vantage point, why are there so many in today's times that are so intimidated by this word equity?
Yeah. Politics. Just call it what it is. Politics has played an important role recently in education. When you think about the term equity in education, that's personalized learning, up and down, right? So it doesn't matter what race, background, creed you come from. You provide personalized, equitable support so that student, right, can become successful. When I think about equity as well, Principal Kafele, I think about growing up in Kankakee, being a SPED student and receiving that personalized support. So that's the way that I look at it. No matter what race you are, you should have an equitable approach to teaching and learning so that student can feel successful and they can gain and grow academically as well as socially.
And the last time you mentioned that you were a SPED student in Kankakee, I didn't go into it. I want to do that right here before I move on. You're telling us that you were a special needs student. That was at the elementary level?
Yes, sir.
Did it go into middle, or did you come out in elementary?
I came out in middle school.
Middle school.
Yes.
So folks on the screen that have students who have been classified as special needs for whatever the reason. I want to use Larue as an example here. We're listening to a young man who was in a special needs self-contained learning environment. But this is a young man who was a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and now back as a teacher and the author of 2 books. And he's also a consultant, right? So I'm highlighting that to say you and I can never rule out anybody. And we also know that a lot of young men, a lot of young people, particularly young Black men, wind up in those environments when they should not be there anyway. But if I'm in a classroom or school where there's a lack of understanding of me, and I'm not saying that this is Larue's case, but I'm just saying, I'm speaking very generically now, where there's a lack of understanding or a lack of relationship building toward really getting to know and understand the youngster that's in the classroom, there's a whole lot of misdiagnoses that happen. So we've got to be in tune with who's in that classroom as a teacher, but this is a leadership platform. So I'm saying again, leader, and those of you who are on with us every week, you know I always take whatever the responses are and flip them right back onto the leadership that's watching. This could be happening right under your nose, that youngster winds up in a special needs environment that should not be there. And it's happening under your nose as a leader, as an assistant principal or as a principal. So therefore, you've got to be so in tune, so entrenched with everything about that school, and you cannot be relegated to a full-time disciplinarian, because if you're relegated to a full-time disciplinarian, then life is passing you by, school life, and you don't know what's happening within the life of the school throughout the course of the day, with the exception of the student that was sent down to the office with the disciplinary referral. So it's critical. Any thoughts to that? Since I was using you as the example here.
No. You're spot on with the information that you're talking about. I think the label sometimes becomes the outcome. And from my experiences, even though I was considered a sped student, I was outperforming academically some of our general populated kids. So that was an issue that my mom identified, and why was the reason I was in a sped classroom. So when I think about that, in a sense, I'm like, we're misdiagnosing kids. We're putting them in the sped department to make teachers feel comfortable and content, right? When all we're asking for is personalized learning, equitable support for our students, and being able to get to know them through relationships.
Personalized learning, equitable support for young people. Good stuff. In the book, and there's a lot I'm not covering because it's just not that kind of time, but in the book, you spend a lot of time on the guru, the GOAT, Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings, who has already agreed to come on this platform. We'll probably have her on here in September. But you referenced her a lot, and I think we all do, because when we talk about culturally responsive practices and culturally relevant pedagogy, we're talking about the one that created the language, the one that created the framework. It's her. For those who may not know, because it's easy to very loosely say culturally relevant practices, culturally responsive practices, but not know where it's coming from. Like when we talk about Black History Month, but don't know a thing about Carter G. Woodson, right? So we'll talk about various different things, but we don't know where it originates. So in this case, you gave her proper respect and talked about her and the impact she's had on you. So with that, culturally responsive teaching, from your vantage point, what does that mean? What does it mean to be culturally responsive in a classroom?
Absolutely. It will be easy to say just responding to the needs of the students. But there are indicators when we talk about culturally responsive teaching. It's welcoming home language, right? Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings talks about that a lot. Welcoming home language, right? Teaching our kids on how to code switch. I think that's very, very key. Also being political critical, or more critical aware of what's happening currently in our society. Having those conversations that deal with social justice, having problem-based learning happening in the classroom, so students can relate to the information that they're currently going through. And last but not least, Principal Kafele, just making sure we focus on identifying individualized learning gaps for that students and having content resources that supports their individual needs for the students. That's all Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings talks about, right? It's not a black and white thing. It's an equitable thing that can support all students.
Talk to us about, let's go deeper with, you mentioned code switching. Let's go deeper with that. Why is it either necessary or unnecessary, whatever your vantage point may be? Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Well, number one is respect. We have to understand that our students come from different backgrounds and cultures, and the way that they speak at home is their common home language. As teachers, we have to be able to welcome that diversity into our classroom. Don't just water that down and say that's not English. Don't say that's not English. It's their English, right? But encourage our students to say it in a different way. So it shows respect for their culture, but teach them how to say it in a different way. I put together a podcast and I talked about code switching synonyms for our students.
Mm.
Have to be able to relate to our kiddos, but don't discredit where they come from, because sometimes we forget about who we are and we forget about where we come from when we discredit that in the classroom. But teach them how to say it in a different way. So it's all about code switching.
You know, it's interesting for me because, you know, we talked offline before we came on live, and I'm here. I'm in a hotel, as everybody can see, and I just did a keynote address, and it was a 100% African American educator audience. It's educators. They're all Black. Well, you know something, and I tell you know I don't hide from this. That's a different delivery for me. It's not the same delivery when I'm somewhere and it's either a diverse audience or an all white audience, right? Or an all Latino audience. Every audience is different, and it forces me to adapt to that audience. Let me just say this real quick. I've said this on this platform before, I think, but I'm gonna say it again. In 2019, right before the pandemic, I was in Michigan to speak to two different audiences, one audience in the morning and another audience in the evening. The audience in the morning was leaders in suburbs of Detroit. They were predominantly white. The audience in the evening were principals of Metro Detroit. They were 100% Black. So, and they were coming to hear me. They were forced, both audiences were forced to hear me because it was PD, but it was in the evening after a long day of school. So the woman who was in charge, she was with me all day. So she saw both presentations. And at the end of the one with the principals in the evening, she said, Principal Kafele, you were so different from what I saw this morning. She said it was as if you were a different person. I said, I had to be. I said, because had I brought what you saw tonight to the folks this morning, I don't think they would have been able to handle that. You know, I'm speaking in the English that I use with family and friends, as opposed to my formal, and I'm just very relaxed and I'm loose and I'm my authentic Principal Kafele, Baruti Kafele. Whereas with the Detroit audience, whereas with the morning audience, you know, one might call it just being very professional. But with the evening audience, after having led all day, and I understand what it is to be Black in terms of culture, I said, they ain't trying to hear that delivery. They need some power. They need some energy. They need some excitement, because they probably been at the school since 7, and now here it is 7 o'clock at night, and they got to listen to some guy from Jersey. So I brought the thunder and the lightning, and they heard me, right? Gave me a standing ovation, but I understood the code switch. See, and when young people don't understand that, as you so eloquently articulated, then they get in all sorts of situations, right? Because I don't understand it. But when one understands different environments, and it require us to be different in so many different situations. Like one of my biggest challenges, Larue, with this topic is this Saturday Academy, because I got a diverse audience. So sometimes I want to keep it like real raw and Black, and then I say, but man, I don't want to lose the folks that tune in for this information. And I'm, you know, so I got to balance this thing, man. I got to make it so that it's so it's palatable for everybody watching. Thoughts, because you're a speaker as well.
Yeah, that's real. I totally agree with you. Had a presentation down at the University of Illinois last month, and I went through culturally relevant pedagogy. And the way that I was able to convey the message was a lot different because I knew my audience, right? I couldn't go in with the conversation about going from Negro to Black. I had to keep it very surface level because I knew that I had to code switch, and the demographics looked a lot different. Now they got the meat and potatoes of the presentation, right? However, the way that I delivered the information was a lot different because of the audience that I had in front of me.
Yeah. So What are the implications, therefore, when we talk about culturally relevant teaching in a diverse classroom, right? Because see, a district like probably where you are, and certainly where I was in East Orange, New Jersey, 100% of my kids are Black. So I don't have the challenge of the balance with diversity, racial diversity in the classroom. But what about when it's a diverse classroom and you want to be culturally relevant for everybody in that classroom? What are the implications there?
Yeah, the implications is that everybody learns from each other, right? It's at times it may seem difficult because you have diversity in your classroom. However, I believe in creating a sparking that fuse in the classroom to allow students to all engage, no matter where you come from. We all have this dream, this passion, this drive, but we can learn from one another. And that's one of, some of the implications that I've noticed. That can be difficult at times. However, we can change it to a positive spin. There are cases, I worked on the north side of Chicago here for Chicago Public Schools, where our students were 50-50 Black and brown, and they all come from different backgrounds. But just to learn and to appreciate the other side's background and how they were able to overcome certain dynamics was huge for my students. That's diversity, right? So you don't leave your current situation going out into our society and feeling socially awkward. You have to be able to expose them to multiple ways or multiple situations where they can be successful. And that's through the lens of diversity and having that being acknowledged by everybody that's in that classroom.
Yeah. So thinking about the audience here, assistant principals, what would you say to to an assistant principal relative to, I keep talking about things that are happening right under one's watch, under one's leadership. What would you say to an assistant principal who evaluates teachers, who supervises teachers in terms of the ensuring that culturally responsive practices, culturally relevant pedagogy is an inherent part of what's happening in those classrooms of the teachers that I supervise?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I would say first and foremost, don't make excuses and don't allow those moments to go away. In some cases, Principal Kafele will say, well, we don't have resources, or we don't have the materials to support culturally relevant teaching, right? But the teachers are the curriculum. And we have to know that. So it's the responsibility of the assistant principal to coach and develop that teacher to understanding that they are the curriculum and they have to do their homework and find ways to code switch the information, find ways to make the connection to the students in which they're servicing. So there are no excuses, right? So once you're able to do that, then students as well as those teachers feel supported and that classroom becomes to thrive academically and socially.
Yeah. Hey, folks, hit that share button, hit that retweet button. We got a little bit more to go. Make sure you let people know. And then if they don't see us live, they can always watch the video, but hit that share button, hit that retweet button. Larue, you went back into the classroom, as we've been saying, and Black male teachers represent less than 2% of the population. I don't know if you know the brother Sharif El-Mekki out of Philadelphia. You know him, okay? And I posted, he was on CBS News the other night, and so he literally left his principalship to create, I think it's called the Center for Black Male Educator Development, and he created this nonprofit organization, left his principalship to devote his professional life to recruiting, training Black men to become teachers. As it relates to the urgency for Black men in the classroom, does that urgency drive the work you do and the decision that you made to go back into the classroom, or was it more of just I just want to be in the classroom? Does that broader context drive any aspects of the work that you do?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I think being a Black male educator is a gift, right? And we need more Black male educators out there in the classroom. I'm very passionate and I would love to see more Black males into this position. One of our brothers that we know wrote a book about the athletic trap. And I noticed this too, even in the classroom with our students. You will ask them what you want to be, what's going on. They want to be a football player, basketball player, YouTuber, artist, rapper, whatever the case may be, but no one talks about the profession of being a teacher. To me, a black man in the classroom as an educator replaces that father that is missing in the lives of those black and brown children in that classroom. So it's very critical for our black youth to see a black male in the classroom doing something positive and inspiring them to be the very best that they can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like you. I embraced that. I did it for 7 years. Probably should have done it for longer before I went on into administration. But I embraced the need for me to be there. I felt like I was doing something that I must do, as opposed to just something that I wanted to do. Right? It's like answering a call, and there were certain things I would presume that I was able to do because I'm a black man that, say, others who are not black men may struggle with, right? So I encourage anybody out there that may be watching who's not even an educator yet, you still trying to figure it out, because I've been told that there's a lot of people who tune in who are not educators. They just tune in because the information is good. But I encourage anybody, any black men, because we're in, a lot of times we don't call it this, but we're in a state of emergency, right? We're in the midst of a national crisis. Teacher shortage, teachers leaving the profession in general, but black men very specifically, right? That's just a crisis. That's a state of emergency. And there's so many black men that I interact with on social media who say, I can't do this for a variety of different reasons. I can't do it any longer. The salary, the lack of respect, and just so on as to why. But I always say, study history and study those folks that we celebrate all the time. Nobody respected them either, in terms of outside of the community, right? We the people that we love and admire and respect and appreciate, these are all people who went against the grain, not with the grain. So because they went against the grain, we know who they are. And most of them put their lives on the line in going against the grain. So as a black male teacher, I went against the grain all the time. One of my former students was actually on the thread, Letitia Anderson. I don't know if she's still on here, but she was my student as a fifth grader. I think she's in her 40s now. But she could attest to it that it was all about them. And it was all about doing right by them. So if there's somebody out there that's considering, if this is something that you could be highly effective at, then you need to consider it, because we need to have more black men in the classroom. Let's keep moving. In your book, you've got this chapter called "The Hell with the Status Quo." And when I read that and I thought about it, I reflected upon it. The hell with the status quo is really what brought me into education in the first place, right? The hell, or some people say to hell with the status quo, right? Talk to us about what you mean by the hell with the status quo.
Yeah. I put that chapter in the book, The Hell with the Status Quo. I was focusing on, being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. As a black educator, we shouldn't care about what others think when we talk about our black and brown scholars, right? And complimenting them. We say in America that problems don't arise until it becomes a white issue, right? And we're not going to be complacent with, okay, you can't say this and you can't do this on the lives of black kids. So when I say the hell with the status quo, I'm not going to make you comfortable in your ignorance. I'm going to call out these injustices, these inequities, and we have to empower our youth to be the very best that they can. So it may feel uncomfortable at times, but I don't align my beliefs to the status quo when you're advocating for black kids. So I put that in there with some other information about the hell with the status quo.
Yeah. Part of that status quo, if I can merge that with culturally relevant pedagogy, part of that status quo is that curriculum that is non-inclusive, right? That curriculum that does not reflect everybody in that classroom. So when we talk about being culturally relevant, I want to stay in that place for a minute. thinking about my years as a teacher, it was incumbent upon me to ensure that the young people were on the page, that the young people were an inherent part of the lesson, right? It was incumbent. How do I teach effectively if what I'm teaching is not relatable, right? How do I teach a math lesson if youngster can't relate to it? How do I teach a science lesson, a social studies lesson, a language arts lesson, if youngster doesn't see him or herself in the midst of the lesson? So given what this platform's about, leaders, and we know that we've got diverse leaders on this platform, what would you say to a leader about ensuring that teaching and learning are relatable in that classroom to young people of color?
Absolutely. Um, I would say to that leader that resources in that school has to be relatable, number one. I would say to that leader that you want to focus on the academic components of skill sets and reading and math. However, the content itself and the way that you deliver it has to relate to the students in which you serve in that classroom. You have to do more project-based learning, right? You have to do more social justice, styles of curriculum. You need to talk about current events. That's the only way that it's going to be relatable. And once that happens, Principal Kafele, we will start to see attendance increase. We would start to see more students more engaged, right? Because they feel like they're part of the curriculum because they see themselves and they can engage more. When they're disengaged, that's because there's a disconnect. They don't know what's going on. So you're not teaching with them, you're teaching at them. Or in most cases, you're teaching over them and they fall into that trap. And once they fall into that trap, it's kind of hard to get them back.
Yeah. So it boils down to, I say to teachers every day and leaders that we don't teach content first.
Mhm.
We teach children first. So we're a teacher of children. Children are the priority, and the content is what we teach to them. But if I don't know children, I usually I do a play on these words. Do you teach math or do you teach Matthew? So
Mm.
Matthew is a child, math is a content. So I'm teaching Matthew first. So if I'm all about the child first, all about the student first, then I got to consider that student. I got to consider the life of that student, the reality of that student, the experience of that student. And then I'll take content, I'll take curriculum and ensure that it's being delivered in a way that that youngster can receive it, can embrace it, because I see myself in it. And I always say that's interdisciplinary. That's not just say social studies, language arts. That's mathematics, that's science, that's PE, that's health, that's CTE, that's everything, right? It's all inclusive. So in terms, just thinking about you in the classroom, do you see that as an inherent part of how you approach pedagogy in children in your classroom?
Yeah, yes, sir. A lot of our students lack the foundation of just culture itself. More importantly, their culture, their information, not understanding that we were kings and queens before we came over here. So I find myself having to go back to give them, history about our own culture in most cases. And we get so passionate about it because they have questions. And it's always those ha moments where they didn't know, right? Because the basic curriculum, the bare minimum that we're providing to our students is aligned to the status quo. So I have to find myself going back to find multiple resources so they can see themselves in the curriculum. They feel engaged and they want to know more. What happened before this? What happened before this? So, oh yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with you.
I love it. I've come just about to the end, but I got these questions that I call my BAM impact questions. These are my rapid fire. Some of my guests struggle with them because it's one word answer or one sentence answer. But sometimes some of my guests it's hard, so it depends. Let me throw them at you. Got 20 questions. BAM impact questions. Here we go. Rapid fire. Is education on the right path for underserved children?
No.
Can true equity occur in America's schools for Black, brown, and other underserved students?
No.
Does your work, Larue Fitch, contribute to the progress we desperately need?
Yes.
If you could do a reset on your life, would your line of work be different or the same?
The same.
Why do you continue to do this work?
Passion.
What fires you up with the work that you do?
My students.
What do you dislike about the work you do?
Compliance.
What has been your greatest victory in this work?
Students graduating from college.
What was your greatest mistake in this work?
Title chasing.
What has been your greatest challenge in this work?
Being humble as a classroom teacher.
Are you proud of your first year as an assistant principal?
No.
Are you proud of your first year as a principal?
Yes.
Who inspires you in this work?
My son.
And I understand why too. What are you reading right now?
7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
What book would you recommend for our viewers this afternoon?
Critical Race Theory.
Gloria Ladson Billings. What do you want to accomplish that you haven't accomplished yet?
Becoming a superintendent.
Oh. Are you satisfied with where you are professionally?
No.
What could you say to a viewer out there who continues to face closed doors?
Stay the course. Stay focused.
What could you say to a viewer out there who's lost their fire?
Join blackeducatorsrock.org.
There you go. And if Larue Fitch was a word in a dictionary, what would be your definition?
My definition will be passionate, caring, loving, family man, reflective, transparent.
I love it. I love it. Great stuff. You know, there's a person on the thread. I don't know if I'm being trolled or not. It could be genuine, but I'm gonna eat the bait. And I want to holler. Let me just holler real quick at Kingman01, who's on YouTube. I've been reading everything you've been writing, sir. But let me say this to you. I don't know what Latino people you're around, right? I don't paint people with broad brushes. I've been in this business called education for a long time, sir. I hope you didn't leave. And I have worked directly with a whole lot of Latino people, whether they be from Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Mexico, South America, Central America. I've worked with a whole lot of them throughout the country. I should say Texas, California, New Mexico, all over the place, right? And something you said, you know, I work with a lot of people who are Latino, who say Black and Latino or Latino and Black. I work with these people. I meet these people. So I'm not going to give you permission to be on this platform and to spew that kind of stuff with a broad brush, right? I don't have to address this on this platform, but I feel I need to, because some of the folks we're talking about might be on here, and I feel it's my obligation to address it. If I agreed with you, I'd let this go and keep moving. But because I so passionately and vehemently disagree with you, right? Because of the people I've worked with over the years. Because see, if not, then they wouldn't invite me out to work with educators of Latino students. What they need is Black guy to come out to work with educators of Latino students when they can bring in a Latino consultant to do the work. So I'll say to you, I'm going to assume I'm much older than you. I'm 61. Try to catch yourself from painting people with broad brushes and deal with the specificity as opposed to making generalizations about people, because generalizations are not cool. They are never cool. Because when you generalize, then sometimes I'm placed into some of those generalizations as well, and I don't want to be in them, right? Look at me as an individual, Baruti Kafele. Don't paint me with everybody that's black. Give me my individuality too. I'm part of the African American family, but I got individuality. So if you watch the news, for example, and what's the thing that happened in the news? Oh, when Will Smith has slapped Chris Rock, and people say Will Smith made black people look bad. No, Will Smith ain't make me look bad one iota. And I don't want to be put into a category of Will Smith because I happen to be black and male. Will Smith, what he did is on him, period. It ain't on no other black person but him. So I'm addressing this now. I'm not going to address it no more, but you've been riding me for a few minutes now. So I said, let me say something to you, but I'm done with it now. So don't come back at me, because then you're going to make me hit that block button, right? So just enjoy the broadcast every Saturday, but don't come on here generalizing people, because I ain't going to let you do it here. I'll hit the block button and goodbye for life. With that said, sometimes I got to say what I got to say. Listen, y'all, I know Larue hit the ball out the park. Let them know, give him some fire, give him some hearts, give him some praise, give him some hundreds, give him whatever you give him. But let them know that once again, week 105 was on point, and it was particularly good to hear somebody that went back into the classroom and to hear some of those perspectives. So I see that fire starting to appear. So yeah, give me some fire, folks. Give me some praise for, not for me, but for Larue. Let them know if you appreciated what was said. I'm trying to buy, you know them little miniature baseball bats, because I can't travel with my big bat, right? So when I'm in the hotels, I need one of them little ones that fits in the bag so that I can still do what I do, to let Larue know that he hit it out the park. Grand slam, 4 runs on 1 batter. Look at all that fire coming, man. So excellent job to you. I appreciate you. Once again, folks, breaking the education code. We didn't even get into this here, but now with my man on here, I don't even think I want to, right? So breaking the education code from Negro to Black is the subtitle, and then breaking the education code. I don't know if you got a subtitle on the first one or not. I left that one at home, but it's a series of 2. So get yourself a copy. Amazon.com. Get them both, right? And where can they follow you at, Larue?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Facebook at Larue Fitch. That's my Facebook name, as well as LinkedIn at Larue Fitch. Those are 2 platforms that I utilize and have tons of resources that are provided for you as well.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I know a lot of people going to want to get in touch with you. So let me close out. Larue, don't leave me. I'm just stay on for me. Let me close out real quick. Here we go. Next week is my 2nd anniversary on the virtual AP Leadership Academy. That's huge for me personally. So next week I'm going solo, no guest, just going solo, and I got a lot to say. And then starting next week, forever, every first Saturday I'm going solo, right? So that means I'm going solo 12 times a year. Every first Saturday I'm going solo, and then we bring on guests for the rest of the month. So join me next Saturday, 2nd anniversary, 106 weeks. Join me. I'm gonna be looking for you. 10:55. Tell a friend, tell a colleague, tell them to be on here. I got a lot to say. I ain't talked solo since Christmas Day. I was on here Christmas Day live, and that was the last time I went solo. Make sure on Facebook Live every Saturday, catch Sean Hurd at 10 o'clock, followed by Create and Educate with Dr. Sheikah Houston, and soon to be Dr. Tammy Taylor at 10:30. This is every Saturday. Sunday, Unlock the Middle with my man Josh Tovar and those educators. And then Village Leadership Group with Dr. Roz Gaskin and Coach Williams, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6. Get yourself a copy of the Assistant Principal 50, the Aspiring Principal 50, and the Education and Social Justice, the Equity and Social Justice Education 50 by me. On Amazon. Just put Baruti Kafele on the Amazon search, and you'll see all my books that Amazon sells. There's like 8 of them. And then go to principalkafele.com for additional resources. including, I told you, you can see my summer public presentation schedule. Not all my other stuff, because that ain't for y'all. That's, that's school districts. But my public national conferences, you can go right on my homepage at principalkafele.com, scroll down, click the links, and join me, which is inclusive of the School Leadership Institute, which is an extension of the virtual AP Leadership Academy. But we're going to do this one in person. So 2 days, July 12th, July 13th, Charlotte, North Carolina. Join me live in person. We're gonna have a great time. This will be the 5th annual of that. And then subscribe to the Virtual AP Leadership Academy YouTube channel. Like and follow the Virtual AP Leadership Academy Facebook page. Make sure you're taking care of yourself health-wise. Your diet is good. You're taking care of yourself, exercising. You're taking all COVID precautions. Some of you may have seen on Facebook, I posted the other day, I ain't wearing the mask everywhere. Look, I'm coughing when I talk about COVID. But I'm wearing it on them airplanes. So where you feel you should wear it, wear your mask. Enough said. Have a great week. Have an extraordinary week. Have your best week yet. Peace. Peace. Thumbs up. Cock that fist back. Count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Bam! I see y'all next Saturday. 10:55 Eastern Time.